Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Okay, welcome everybody to Chassidus in the Morning, 15 minutes. I'm leDodi, special L edition. About to finish this parak, which is not really, I'm going to the next parak. So essentially this parak is going to finish off sort of the answer, and the next parak I'm going to start discussing troubleshooting. So essentially what we're saying is, I'm leDodi, veDodi li, I'm to my beloved, beloved is to me. This is the Elul, that I'm to my beloved. It represents us trying to come close to God, to Hashem, which is the avoid of Elul, and veDodi li is, and God coming to us, it's God revealing Himself in Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, and says Tshuva, that time period. And we said that we understand, and that's essentially what Elul is about. Through the Rosh Hashanah and Kippur avodah that we do, is how it's going to affect our year. In order for that to happen, not to be a keli to receive what is given in Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, we have to first have a preparation of Elul. Just like you want to anything in life, you have to prepare. You have a test, you have to prepare. You go for a marathon, prepare. For marriage, you prepare. For shidduchim, you have to prepare. Everything has to be with this preparation. And the month of preparation helps the 10 days. And that's essentially what we're saying. Now, and then we said that really the question is on Elul. It's a revelation of the third attributes of mercy, a very high level of Elokus, the same revelation that we have in Kippur, but we clearly see an infinite difference in Elul and Kippur. So what's going on over here? So Alter said, I'll explain to you in a mashal. And this mashal is really analyzed by the Rebbe a lot. And the mashal is essentially this king coming back to the city from a trip out of town. On his way back, he goes to the town through the field, and everyone from the city goes out to the field to greet him. And whoever wants to come greet him, and he greets everyone with the Sefer Pam Yafa, he's smiling and joyous countenance, and he's very happy to greet them. And he's accessible. The king becomes very accessible. And then on the way back to the city, they all go with him. And then he goes to the palace. And once he goes to the palace, only specific people can go into the palace. You need to have specific permission. The king loses that accessibility. And so essentially what we're saying is in Elul, Hashem is in the field. Hashem is very accessible. But because it's in the field, so that's why it's not a Yom Tov. It doesn't have that royal grandeur that you have when the king's in the palace, which is Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. He's in the palace, just walking in that area, and going through the Gads, it's already very awe-inspiring, and it has inside. Whereas in the field, it's available. To use a bad example, a few years ago, it has to be, when President Obama was in charge, there was one Friday that he was going in Crown Heights. He was going to school to speak or something. So they ended up organizing, he was going to drive down Kingston. It was actually the opposite way of Kingston, down Kingston. And I wouldn't say I was a very big fan of his, especially with his opinions and the way he treated Israel. So when the time was coming that he was driving, or the entourage was coming, people went out to see him, and it's the president, and people had signs, protests from Mordechai Rabashkin, and I guess with Israel and things, and everyone went out, and my wife went out to see him, to check, to see. But I didn't see anything, I didn't go. And this is sort of what El is all about. The king is available, the king is going in your streets, the king's there. You're mundane, you can access him, but you have to put in the effort. It's not, you don't feel it. Whereas if you're walking to the palace, even if you're not going to see the king, but you're going to be in the palace, you're going to be in the White House, you're going to feel it. That energy is there. And this is sort of what we're saying, that El doesn't have that energy. That's why it's not a Yom Tov, because God's sort of doing it in this tricky way. And that's just how it is. And that's essentially what El is about. So then we discussed yesterday, what's really the purpose? What are we trying to do over here? So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to connect, that the ultimate goal is that everything we do in our lives is connected to God. That we have this Kabbalah soul, and that's like yisroel, the name Yisrael comes from Yud Sar Kel, that Kel, which is the third attribute of mercy, and the head of it, and really encompasses everything, should be the Sar, the ruler, the minister, should be the one that rules us. The Elikus should be what rules us. Our decisions are based off what's good for a nefesh l'kis, what's good for my neshama, what's good for my connection with Hashem. And the yud that is consistent. That's what we want to achieve. That's what we're trying to do. And through that avoid of Elul, it gives us the ability that when God reveals himself in all his glory in the palace, we'll be able to connect to that and feel that. And through that, the rest of the year will be a whole different year. And that's what we're saying. Yeah, we'll go from just a paragraph back in my book at least. What does it mean that the kel is the ruler and the minister within you? We all have a spark godliness, mamish, literal spark godliness, literal godliness. Gives life to our nefesh l'kis, and it's drawn down into your nature. And by nature it wants to go up to Hashem, to the light, to the light, within the light of life, meaning to want to connect to God. Limser nashoi, to the point of self-sacrifice, a love to God, which is above nature and the intellect. Why? Because was through using the intellect, the understanding. Because by nature, you're not going to be willing to sacrifice yourself for God. Meaning, by nature of the world in nature, God is not apparent. God doesn't recognize. So I'm not going to give myself up for that. To the point of willing to die. It's like I think I said this before, that those some chassidim, when they came out of Russia, the Rebbe, they came for Tishrei, the Rebbe paid for the tickets to come for Tishrei, and they were sent them to a few gedalim and influential, like holy Yidden, and he sent them to Rav Moshe Feinstein, Alav Shalom, which was the biggest halachic authority in the law, until the 80s. I think he passed away in the late 80s, and so Rav Moshe Feinstein asked the chassidim. He sees these Russian chassidim. They've been in communist Russia for 50 years, and they're still religious. He said, "How do you do it?" And they said, "Do you have a choice?" Like, how did you survive? How did you stay from? You have a choice. So in Russia, in those situations, that ability to say, "I don't have a choice," and there's chassidim stories that there was a guy that he wasn't working on Shabbos. He was in jail. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Remendel. I'm not sure. And he it became known that he doesn't work on Shabbos, which is totally unheard of, but that's what it was. So came a new God, and he didn't know this whole deal they had, and they see this guy not working on Shabbos. He's like, "What are you doing not working on Shabbos?" And I think the guy started beating him up, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to make sure you work on Shabbos." And at a certain point, the chazan couldn't take the beating anymore. He was like finished, and he said, just kill me. Like I can't take this. But the shayla is, why didn't he just say, "Fine, I'll work on Shabbos"? Because he was connected like this. Limser nafshay alav yisbarach to Hashem. He was so connected that breaking Shabbos was impossibility. That even to the point of self-sacrifice, he could die. But losing that connection with God, it's not happening. Yeah. Because logically you wouldn't do that. You say, "Okay, I'm going to work. It's fine. It's not worth this God thing. If that's it's going to be so much pain and die." That's logic. And by being, you're connecting to a love within you. It's above logic. You're connecting to God. He's so real, so more. It's everything. It's your purpose. So then you're willing to give up your life for it. And this is what we're trying to connect to. This is what we're trying to live our lives like. Because when you live a life like that, you have clarity. You know when you go to shidduchim, you know what to choose. You know what's important to you. It's like if you read the Rebbe's letters in shidduchim, especially in the early years, what was the main focus I ever had? A person should be a good frum Jew. Because in those days that was the standard. But I also think about it. It was also the standard of the people. And they were saying you have to realize that for you and the life you want to live, that's what's most important. But nowadays, unfortunately, where everyone is from, and so we have all these different standards. But I suppose we lost that connection. So if we had that connection, we really felt the way we're talking about in the Maimer. So the only question would be, was what's the frumkeit and the Yiddishkeit and the Chassidishkeit? Those will be important to us. But I'm like, you give up yourself from everything. You'd give up everything for this. This is what it means that we are sons to Hashem because we're like the extension of God. Because we're an extension of God. Not in any logical way. We're like the foot. Which the foot is nullified to the head. There's no self-identity of the foot. The foot is not a separate entity from God, and we are essentially like this. And this is what we're trying to reveal throughout the whole year, which is given to us on Yom Kippur, but we can only receive it through our void of Elul. This is what it means to nullify your will in front of the will of Hashem. In order to get to this level, not that Hashem should reveal himself this level, and we should be able to receive it on the Yom Kippur. You and I, we have to nullify all the foreign desires. We have to put away everything that we desire that's not godly and put that aside. And how do we do this? This is through all our avodah and Elul. Yeah. Exactly. Like he says in the footnote of English, through the expression of a heartfelt commitment of tshuva, in the month of Elul, the Jew makes themselves mediums to relate to the infinite dimensions of godliness revealed during Tishrei. That through working on ourselves, make ourselves a vessel to be able to receive, then we can receive everything on Tishrei, which will transform everything. Kitzur. This kitzur is from the Tzemach Tzedek. So in the end of the Maimon, there's Tzemach Tzedek's writings, and so they put it in my version at least, they put it in after the thing because it connects. It's what's the summary? So leDodi. So what is the kitzur? The Elul Masul B'chinas Ani leDodi. Elul begins the concept of Ani leDodi, like I said before, that we have to come in and like we've been talking about, we have to work on ourselves and do tshuva and try to connect ourselves with godliness, with elikus. Ani leDodi v'hainu is rose the lasata, which is the arousal from below, which is us putting in the effort to Beresh on Yom Kippurim. Who veDodi li? Yom Kippur is about veDodi li. It's about Hashem revealing to himself to us and what he reveals. Hainu hamshachas l'kusayis lamata, the drawing down of godliness below. Mischila smeila itach the reishi yira. In the beginning, Yom Kippur, it's coming from the left hand under my head, which is Yira, which is the awe of God and the fear of God. The Elul, and in Elul you'd give me this, you have the third attributes of mercy. And the question we asked, then why is Elul not a Yom Tov? This is like the example of a melech, a king. We're going to greet him in the field, and this is what we're doing in Elul. We're trying to greet the king in the field. We have to go out to the field and greet him. Hashem Panav, Hashem will shine his countenance. Who Inyan you'd give him this. This is the third attributes of mercy. What does it mean that it will shine? That Hashem will shine to us. yisroel, and this is what it means. Yisroel, Yisar Kel. That Kel, the level of godliness within us, should be the minister. That the Kel is the one that rules within us. The godliness within us is on making the decisions. To be continued tomorrow. I just want to finish off that part of the Avodah, and this is something that I have learned and I constantly learn, like realize, is that everything we said I think is pretty good and pretty basic, pretty clear. But the important first step is to recognize my nefesh elokis within me and my nefesh bahamas within me. Because if we're wanting to say that we have to work on getting the Yud Sar Kel, that the Kel should be the one in charge, we have to know who the Kel is. We have to know who the godliness within us is, and when that's talking, when that person is talking. In order to understand how to get that person to continue talking. We should all have an amazing day, and to be continued tomorrow.